the YouTube channel as well as we can view. Can we start, sir? Smita,
I'm fine.
Smita, whether the YouTube channel and all we are on now? Can you confirm? Mr.
Yes,
Armagon,
yes,
Smita,
yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir. Yes, everything is on, sir. People are joined. We can start, sir.
so we can start.
Please, please, sir.
Thank you. Dear colleagues and our esteemed customers, a very warm good evening to all. As we are all aware, the Swachh Bharat mission was launched on 2nd October 2014 in our country as a national movement with the vision of a clean India. As a part of this movement, Swachhata Pakhwada is observed every year to ensure mass participation of citizens in Swachhata activities and truly transform Swachh Bharat mission into a citizen movement. This year, our bank is observing Swachhata Pakhwada in line with the government directions from January 16 to 31st. Various initiatives like the CSR activities and other initiatives on the cleanliness are being conducted all over the country by our branches, corporate office, and other administrative offices. Yesterday, we had conducted a signature campaign on say no to single-use plastic at corporate office, and also taken a Swachhta pledge led by our top management. Other initiatives like quiz contests on Swachhta awareness on social media and our online channels with our staff, distribution of masks, sanitizers, and other hygiene related products by zones and branches, planting of tree sampling at various centers, distribution of reusable cloth bags are also being undertaken at various places in our bank. As a part of this Swachhta mission, Swachhta Fortnight, today we have arranged a webinar on hygiene and sanitation and related matters, which is more relevant and important in particular during this current COVID situation. We have with us Mr. Sameer Mehta, who is the Vice Chairman of Dr. Mehta's Hospital and Chief Investment Director of the Atlas Family Office. Mr. Mehta is also the co-founder of a number of entities, including India Home Healthcare, Arya Play Games, and Atlas Intelligence. He also serves on the board of various organizations like Proclean Technologies, MyTalk Technologies, IIT Madras Rural and Technology Incubator Center, and Mr. Mehta, Sameer Mehta is regular speaker and governing advisor at international conferences and symposium on healthcare, family business succession, human behavior, clean tech, wealth and investment management. On behalf of Indian Bank, we welcome you, sir, for today's event. And we all are very eager to hear from you. So now, all over to you, Mr. Mehta. Please carry on with your presentation and the others.
Hi, guys, and thanks a lot, sir, for first inviting us. So I'll try and keep this a little bit interactive, and I hope that many of you will have questions. The primary purpose of sharing this is to make you a lot more aware of what's happening, what the government is targeting, and why this is, hats off, one of the most, I think, focused missions to make a difference in our daily lives that has long term positive implications. Very few times governments take large steps for health. And I think we have to partially thank COVID, because COVID has really put healthcare as a primary discussion topic on all people's political tongues. That is one. I think second, we have to take our hats off to the central government for a fantastic response. There was no playbook for COVID. There was no role model roadmap from a country that was either bigger than us, better managed than us, for COVID. For all the pain we had during wave one and wave two, we can honestly say that the government, to a large extent, and it's not necessarily every time it gets it right, but I would say that 80% plus time, both the central and the state government have done a remarkably positive job. Today's discussion is, where do we go beyond COVID? Because COVID has not left us. For most of us, in my household, my parents have just recovered from Omicron. We were very careful. We managed to, even though we are in the center of the healthcare ecosystem, we managed to somehow keep away. But today, it has entered our household. My kids have just recovered and they are 13 years old. My wife is currently not well, and I am a suspect in quarantine. So, for those of you who think that this is not important, Omicron is still there. But as long as you are sensible about how you manage your health currently, hopefully you are all vaccinated. If you haven't been vaccinated, please do. It is the single biggest defense for COVID. But this discussion is not about COVID, it is beyond COVID. So, with that, let me jump. So, the agenda, what I'm going to cover is why you should pay a little bit of attention to what I'm saying. Because a lot of people be saying, this is another healthcare person. We know everything. I can see everything on NDTV or ZTV or Sony TV or CNBC. Why do I need to pay attention to something that your corporate institution has took great efforts to organize for you? The second is to share some facts and data that will bring this to life in your mind and internalize it. Third, hopefully, you will give me some tough questions and a discussion on a few key topics. And we can wrap up with some questions and answers that you still may have left behind. So, Dr. Mehta is the institutes I share time with. It was founded in 1933. It started off as a surgical center with obstetrics and gynac. We are a center of excellence model. For those who are not familiar with that model, we basically only have two units. And unlike seeing perhaps Apollo or Rainbow or Manipal or Columbia Asia, we are a little bit different. We are like the Harvards or the Mayo Clinic or one of those star centers in the United States. We are focused in our single unit. Each unit has to be ultra successful from clinical outcomes in its own right, which means that our singular focus is around clinical outcomes. And just to bring this to life in your head, during COVID, the success rate of an average hospital across India was somewhere between 91 and 94%. What that means is, if you had walked in with a serious ailment related to COVID, out of 10 people who walked in, 9 people would walk out comfortably, and another, basically, the remaining groups, out of 100 people, 5 or 6 people may not walk out at all. So out of 100, if you've got basically 94% clinical outcomes, it means that your mortality rate is 6%. The top 5-10 hospitals in India, the Medanta, the Manipals, the Hinduja, the Hiranandanis, the Apollo Greaves Road, those operate at around 96 to 97% success for COVID. So this is, remember, serious COVID. You've come in with a serious case. You're either going to a ward or an ICU. So this is not that light COVID at all, as we're seeing today. Dr. Mehta's, our two units, had a success rate of 99.2% and 98.4%. And just to put that in perspective, out of 100 people, that meant typically only 1 or two people suffered extremely serious consequences, and the rest could walk out comfortably a few days later or a week or two later. So that is what a center of excellence model means. We're 85 plus years old. We're family owned but professionally managed. We don't have third party capital other than banks. And we are quite frugal because our singular focus as an institution is clinical outcomes. Today, we have successfully crossed 1 million surgeries. So we joke we have about some 400 families that have had 3 generations born with us. We have about 30,000 families that have had 2 generations born with us. And we have currently 3 families that have had 4 generations born with us. And think about this because it's very rare. Most people who come to us for maternity also come to us for most serious ailments, whether it's cancer, whether it's major surgery of gastro, nephro, uro, and most of the other our neurosurgery, orthopedics are quite big practices. So we've crossed around 250,000 advanced surgeries, of which over 2 million are normal, simpler surgeries, but 250,000 are neuro, ortho, complex spine. We're talking about kidney transplants and things like that. And so our focus is that we want to be the top in clinical outcomes. If you come to a Dr. Mehta's institutions, you want to be saved. You want to have the best opportunity to have a high quality life after you get saved. And I think that's what we focus on. And the one thing that has always been consistent is we are all about comfort and affection. So, how do we make our customers comfortable? Because not all of them come to celebrate the birthing of their children or to do a major surgery. Some of our customers come also to say goodbye to planet Earth. It's a transition for them, and they want to do it comfortably in a place that feels a little bit like home, that has a lot of customer touch, that is somewhere where perhaps many of them are born or they've spent time feeling confident about healthcare, because it's not easy to say goodbye anywhere but your house surrounded by loved ones. And that is something that is a little bit different about us. We are also quite strong working with neighbors and peers, whether it's an Arvind Eye Hospital, as SRMC in Chennai, or an Apollo in Chennai. We have phenomenal friends, Sundaram Medical Foundations, VHS, Adyar Cancer, CMC Vellore, and many other peer institutions, Shankar Netralia, that we can talk about, are close friends of ours. And that is how we would like to operate. During COVID, one of our top peers, Child Trust Hospital, we as a direct competitor and peer at times ran their COVID ward for adults in Child Trust Hospital. Now think about it. It is like Indian Bank inviting your single biggest competitor to sit in your institute and look after the best of your customers and your staff. And that is what we call privilege, because that means we've earned trust and the right to operate at a level that transcends standard trust. And we are all about focused on keeping our direct family, meaning all our team members, staff, as well as our extended suppliers and customers and bankers and payers and insurance companies safe. So the one thing people will say about us, we're one of the few hospitals that had about 30 beds reserved for people's families that were suppliers, bankers, insurance companies, and we looked after people because especially during wave 2, it was very hard to get an oxygen bed. So that is a little bit about Dr. Mehta's, why you should pay attention to me. So I'm a little bit educated. I've lived in many different countries. I've lived in the United Kingdom, in the Netherlands, in Argentina, spent some time in Brazil. I was an election observer with the United Nations in Russia when Putin came to power. I have lived in North America, and then I returned to India in 2007. I have studied in some of the top institutions globally. Uh, Northwestern Kellogg University. I'm currently pursuing a part-time doctorate at IIT Madras, for fun, as I joke about it, in artificial intelligence, because I thought, let me learn something new. And I've worked in some of the largest companies in the world, like Exxon, ICI Chemicals, British Petroleum, Shell, McKinsey and Company, and some of the others. I've had the privilege of sharing time with some great boards, the Chennai Angels in Chennai, and many other organizations and institutions, both at a senior level and at different levels. And I've had every role from being just like you, somebody who was starting my career as a project engineer or a manager, to somebody who has been chairman of boards, as well as tried different things like being an entrepreneur to being a professional CEO. And I'm extremely overqualified for anything useful. So, to be honest, the joke I have is every day you can have as many letters in front or after your name, it doesn't matter. Every day starts with zero. You start again. So, with that, let me go straight into content. The average life expectancy in India, if I look at it from 1800 to today it's around 69.2.3 years, how much the average Indian lives. Now, that hides many things because uh, obviously, many of you know that as society is developing further, as healthcare is evolving further, as our quality of life is not as stressed as it was, and perhaps as things like maternal mortality, children's mortality is coming better under control, obviously the average age keeps going up. The perspective is by 2030, we will live to around 75 years of age. And by 2050, we should be around 85 plus years of age, probably 86, 87, if not higher. This hides a few things. Any disruption in healthcare or technology is not included in this beyond what normal scope is. Now, if you pay attention to this chart, you will see that for the longest time it was flat. And then all of a sudden it took off like a curve. And the reason for this is if you think about what happened in the 2000, in 1920 and 1930, the first serious tertiary care hospitals were put in place across India. So in India, not only were you under the British rule, but you started getting good healthcare. Great healthcare did not come till after independence, and that's where you see 1950 it went down, and then it starts going up significantly. So when India owned its own healthcare ecosystem, and of course penicillin was invented, and a few other things were more common, antibiotics, you started getting a lot more superiority in healthcare. So today, if we just believe how we are growing, our children and our grandchildren will live much longer lives than hopefully we do. And that is the single biggest gift we can give to the next generation. Now, I will also share some fun facts. This obviously hides the quality of your life. So, what you see in blue is secrets of life. So, to have great quality of life, sometimes don't pay as much attention to the 69 plus years or 75 years. Pay attention to the things that can help you live longer, but without perhaps spending all the time in bed, without perhaps being a little bit unable to move around like some of our grandparents have been. And how can you have the best quality of life being very active? And I think that's what the next 20 to 30 minutes will cover for. Who is accountable for your health? Is it the government? Is it a doctor? If it is a doctor, which one? We all trusted the family doctor. We also trusted the general clinician. If you have children, you trust the general pediatrician or the pediatrician that you have. If you're just given maternity or a childbirth, you're typically trusting a gynecologist. But here is the biggest single secret of healthcare. And this is how you know you're going to an outstanding hospital. See, in previous generations, how a doctor became good to great was all about the number of patients they saw, the number of different settings they experienced, and the quality of their training. So, if you had average training, but you saw a lot of patients and you had great apprenticeships, you normally became a great clinician. In today's age, where the quality of education is very opaque, but you have all the way from very average to outstanding, look for somebody who is an internal medicine physician. Internal medicine is different from family medicine, it's different from general practitioner. An internal medicine physician typically has to be an advanced physician, and these are the integrators in healthcare. What I mean by this is in a hospital, somebody who's internal medicine sees not only a lot of cases, but sees complex cases that are typically not easy to diagnose. Whether the person spends time from the emergency medicine coming in, so trauma cases, emergencies, surprises, people going to the ICUs, and therefore being in intensive care and needing treatment. And internal medicine gets exposed to both of those. And that gives them a very unusual opportunity to be like the detective of the 20th century for healthcare. They are the equivalent of a CSI detective, an NCIS detective, a Poirot, an Agatha Christie, or Sherlock Holmes detective. Internal medicine doctors in good hospitals are priceless. If I want to know what is special about me, if I want to know if something's going seriously wrong, as a hospital owner, the first person I ask is an internal medicine physician. Now, if I have children, I go to a general pediatrics clinician first. But otherwise, it's internal medicine. In a private hospital setting and in public hospitals, look for two things. You should look at NABH accreditation. It is a accreditation standard that means that the quality of healthcare is at least checked regularly, that there are internal checks and balances to keep improving consistently, and that you have a set of standards that are based on many international standards but relevant for India. And therefore, if a hospital is NABH accredited, it normally is of high quality. Normally, in every city, there are at least 20 NABH accredited hospitals in a metro. In a tier 2 town, there are typically 3 to 5 hospitals that are NABH accredited. Just to give you scale, there are 80,000 hospitals above 50 beds in India. There are less than 2,000 NABH hospitals in India, which means that 2,000 out of 80,000 have quality standards that are high, that are checked. That means if there is a problem for you, there has to be a recourse in play. But more importantly, there is a system that is there to help you avoid a problem in healthcare. There is somebody who checks medication error. There is somebody who checks any sort of clinical error from the hospital side. And there are things, checks and balances. And I think that is something pay attention to, please. NABH accreditation. It's the national accreditation body for healthcare that gives this certification, and it is tough. I will tell you it's tough because we're currently going through a recertification. 3 days, three assessors are sitting in my hospital, going all the way around from biomedical waste to infection control to doctors, whether they are proper doctors, to whether my staff have got proper training, whether the way they treat their patient is checked. It is of a high quality. Most Apollo, most Manipal, most Columbia Asia, most good hospitals in every city are NABH. The second thing you have to check is clinical outcomes. If a hospital is good, they will focus on clinical outcomes. Why do you go to a hospital? You go to have a holiday? You go to have a party? You don't. You go to get your healthcare better. And so, therefore, in health, if you have to trust someone, if you're trusting the government or a doctor or a private hospital, internal medicine or general pediatrics, if you're a child, NABH accredited, and people who understand what it means when we ask them what are your clinical outcomes and can give you a straight answer. If they cannot give you a straight answer, consider getting up and going to the next institute. Simple as that. I will ask again, who is accountable? Is it your parents? Is it your brother or sister? Is it your spouse, your wife or husband if you're a lady? So, the good news here for all of you, and this is based on extensive research, if you get married and you're a male gentleman, you will typically live 6 years longer in your life. This is a very long study. It was done out of the United Kingdom. And anybody who got married had on average 6 years extra life. Now, that was good for guys. The problem was when they did the same thing with the women in the ecosystem, they found that most women lived 1.5 years extra. So, guys got a much better deal than ladies. Unfortunately, I'm sorry about it, right? But the good news about it is married life typically gives you better structure in terms of what you eat, in terms of typically the place that you live, somebody to check in on you when you're unwell. So, especially a lot of you will understand this when you're unwell and have nobody around you. The risk of you deteriorating very quickly is very high. And some of you experienced that at COVID with neighbors who were by themselves and needed your help to save their life. Is it your kids that have to look after you? And maybe your kids live somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in the country or somewhere across the city. So, who is accountable for your health? I think be clear in your head about this. Or is it your neighbors or friends or colleagues? Right? And the reality why I'm asking this is because the best person is you. Please allow this to sink in. if you do not take ownership about your health care, about how safe you are, about the surroundings in which you live, nobody else can really save you in the long run. They may save you tomorrow, but 5 days from now, when perhaps that support system is not that clear, the likelihood of you being at risk is much higher. A couple of special mentions, and then we will go into the sanitation and hygiene component of our discussion. Is there are a couple of things that will help you live higher quality, safer, longer lives. First is it's worth checking any hereditary or environmental factors. Hereditary factors are simple: diabetes in the family, cholesterol in the family. Has anybody in your family had stroke, heart attacks? Make a note of that. Find out if it's just one person or more than one person. Find out if it's everybody from your father's side or mother's side. Obviously, if there are more than 2 or 3 people directly related to you who've had heart issues, you should get your heart checked. It is a direct likelihood. Number two, there are lots of aspects of NCDs that are hereditary. So, cancer risk increases if somebody had the same type of cancer, at least 2 people in the family had the same type. It is exponential. So, check that. Environmental risk is a little bit different. Do you live in an area that used to have a paint factory or a battery factory? Do you live nearby a water body that has had environmental contaminants that have been nearby because you had an industrial plant there or a chemical plant nearby? Do you live near a port which sometimes might have effluent treatment that is disposed next to you? These are all things that are worth checking. You can't solve it. You can't, unless you change your neighborhood, you can't solve some of these problems. But at least if you know that, for example, you live next to a railway station that has a lot of fumes and air pollution, you might be able to, for example, buy an air purifier at home. You might put it in every room of your house. You might buy a more expensive HEPA filter air conditioned recycling system. And that is a simple piece of advice to have for every one of you. Check hereditary and check your environmental factors. Exercise, you do need to do some physical activity. For those of you who live in a 2-story or 3-story apartment, consider walking down, at least using the staircase. For those of you who are a little bit more active and want some exercise, walk up as well, please. I think for those of you who live on the 20th story, perhaps go to the 3 stories under you, get out and then walk up or walk down 3 stories and then get into a lift. Simple hack, but it'll make your life better. For those of you who live near a beach, please walk. For those of you who believe that you work in a nice, big, sprawling office like many of the Indian bank offices, instead of picking up the phone and calling the person, perhaps it's a good thing to go to your colleague and have a cup of tea at their desk. And perhaps celebrate some moments of proximity together. Maybe not during COVID, but after COVID. Diet is a big piece of your diet. So, just to give you context, even though the brain is 3% of your body mass, it controls and consumes 20% of the energy of the body. And therefore, the food you eat that impacts your brain, your mind, your spirit is at a much higher percentage based on high quality protein, ketones, and some of the amino acids that you will consume. If any of you have ever spent time with a great dietitian, you know their weight in gold. Take a simple diet consult. It will cost you 300 rupees at best. If it is the top dietitian in the country, the most expensive dietitian I've seen is 700 rupees, who is good. And honestly, good diet, you will do this once every 10 years. You do not need to do it every year. If you do it once every 10 years and get advice, it will help you for the next 10 years of your life. That will work out at less than 100 rupees, which in today's age, that is less than you buying a nice cup of coffee at Starbucks or somewhere nice. So treat your body to a little bit of better than Starbucks life by checking out diet. Posture, how you sit in the office. If you can take a photograph and send that to any orthopedician or any chiropractor, and there are sometimes there are some new phone apps that can check this, it will help you, because having the right posture will make your life much better, especially when you get past 60. Now, if you have things like flat feet or hereditary gait problems, this will help you even earlier than that. So if you already are having back problems at the age of 40, 50, and many people are coming to us with those kind of issues, this can actually reduce it, because as you have more non-physical lifestyles where you sit behind a desk most of the time looking at a computer screen at an angle that's a bit low, a little bit of this common sense will go a lot more to superior sense for you. Last couple of points that are simple. Your bed and mattress, make sure you spend a bit more money having a great bed and mattress for all members of your family, because even though it will cost you an extra few thousand rupees, your mattress is the difference between you having a great life and having a lousy life. The most expensive mattresses in India cost maybe 20,000 rupees. An average outstanding mattress is probably around, as for a single mattress, is probably about 6,000, 7,000 rupees. Spend money on a good mattress and bed, please. For those who stay on the ground with chatai, that is even better than a mattress. But if you want to actually stay up in a bed, spend a little bit of money. Make sure your mattress every 5 to 10 years is at least at a high quality with good springs and good protection for your back. Shoe soles. Many of you are going to spend much time walking. For ladies, a lot of ladies and our children love high heels. Find comfortable heels, they're more important than high heels. For guys, you may like the look of a shoe, but more importantly, if you like the look of a shoe, spend a little bit more money buying these gel based shoe soles, because you're spending about 25% of your life on your shoes. You're spending about 30% of your life on your back in your bed. If you can look after these two areas and also look after your posture in your office chair and home, it will make the world of difference to you. Final 2 points: mental and emotional well-being. It is important to make sure that you feel that you have people that you can talk to, that you have people at all times that don't make you feel lonely. And what I mean by this is actually a little bit different to having surrounding yourself with a lot of people. Are there people around you that give you positive energy when you spend time with them? If there are, increase the time with them. If there are people who take away energy from you, decrease the time with them, right? Because your mental and emotional well-being, and especially during COVID, this was quite a much bigger area for a lot of us, because we did not have as much capacity to meet our loved ones, our friends, to go out and do the things we like. This was something that was very critical. So I'm now into the main subject matter of hygiene and sanitation. Are there any questions that any of you have, or can I just jump into this topic? I've covered a lot of simple
You
hacks.
will take Q&A at the end, sir.
Okay, great. So what do we mean by hygiene and sanitation? Bajaj ji, I will ask you since I can see you. What do you understand by hygiene and sanitation?
No, here again, the cleanliness around us and keeping ourselves clean and the nearby area keeping clean is the main thing,
I
as
think
well as the
fantastic,
hygiene is.
sir. You are a proponent of the best. So actually, what we mean are a number of different factors that are beyond. See, you remember hospitals when you're already ill. Hygiene and sanitation helps you avoid getting ill. So prevention is always better than cure. Remember, the cost of prevention is maybe 2,000 rupees a year. Maybe if you have to do infrastructure upgrades, maybe it will be a few over your lifetime, it may be 4 to 5 lakhs. But prevention, one hospital bill in the wrong hospital is more than 5 lakhs, right? So remember, prevention is better than cure. Please. So hygiene and sanitation includes pollution and how you do waste disposal. So pollution not just in your house but around your house. Toilet access and availability not just for you but the people who work in your household, who work in your offices. In your offices. Third, hyperlocal risk factors. Do you have local bodies of water that are stagnant, which are mosquito breeding grounds, which are hepatitis breeding grounds? Uh, is there chemical disposal nearby? There is a big property in Bangalore on the highway that is right next to a former battery plant. Nearly 10% of the people in that facility, that now residential complex, have been complaining about problems with long-term health. Some children with serious issues, sometimes carcinogenic oncology, which is cancer. And if you are aware of these hyperlocal risk factors, you can do something about it. The last piece is education always beats tradition. Now, let me explain this. Many of us have been fortunate to be brought up by people who are very extremely educated in Vedic scriptures. How that happens, sorry, I just saw a message, but I assume it's not for me. The How that happens is basically the best knowledge from our forefathers are apprenticed in our ecosystems, and what works is wisdom and is transferred to the next generation. Obviously, if it doesn't work, the person's died and you don't care, right? Uh, but a lot of education today is also unfortunately politicized or religiousized into something that has no consequential scientific knowledge. Menstruation is not a bad thing. Every lady needs to go through menstrual cycles. There is nothing wrong with menstrual cycles. There are hygienic steps you can take to make it more comfortable for your loved ones or your colleagues. And I think those periods, asking a person no longer to attend religious functions or come to work during menstruation is not the right idea. Breastfeeding is not a bad thing. It protects the next generation. Breast milk has a lot of positive nutrients that help us get protection so that we are safer. And that is also part of hygiene and sanitation. And then, of course, there's drinking water. So it is all of this. And why I'm trying to highlight the fact that it is where you see somebody, unfortunately, outside your office or outside your house that is perhaps doing public disservice to the walls, or somebody who lives in an environment or having to cook in an environment that has a lot of waste around them, or some water bodies that have collected that have a lot of mosquitoes on, or places where there's effluent waste. I think these are all examples of public health. And just to put perspective, in the world of prevention in healthcare, a hospital and a doctor or a general practitioner, whether it's Ayush, whether it's uh, allopathic, whether it's homeopathic, or any type of doctor, Chinese specialist, traditional, they represent only 10 to 20% of healthcare. 70% of your public health is because of the environment and the things around you that you will live with. So, if you have bad water bodies around your house, you may live in the fanciest house. It will not save you from dengue or other forms of mosquito vector virus. If you live next to water bodies that have groundwater, that have a lot of waste disposal next to it, or waste, plastic waste thrown near it, you are going to have risk of some other things in the water. That's reality. I go further in hygiene and sanitation. Kitchen ventilation. Do you have enough ventilation or an exhaust fan in your kitchen to take out all the smoke that comes from the tawa or comes from the old charcoal based fires? For those of us who are transformed beyond that, it may be your grill, your barbecue, whatever. Do you have ventilation? Your food supply chain is now more important than ever. A lot of the food supply chain goes through without proper cold storage. So, therefore, it might be fresh fruits, might be picked in the nicest part of India. But if it is not stored well, transported well, then you might have bugs or other affiliated bacteria that will grow in that food supply chain. So, therefore, whether it is a direct organic food supply chain, whether it's heavily uh, got a lot of these fertilizer or chemical based additives onto your supply chain, or even worse, if it's genetically modified without controls and without proper processes, these are all things that are worth checking. And guess what? In the West, people already check this. It will happen in India in the next 10 years. 20 years from now, we will be spending 10 times more on food that comes through a clean supply chain than today. And the irony is that is our fault. Because today, if we insist on it to everybody, including our farmer, they will do it for free. But if you wait 10 years and you expect the big companies to do it, somebody will make a lot of money doing this for you. Hand hygiene is critical, guys, and this is the single biggest thing for COVID. You know, COVID in the very earliest days was transmitted because people did not wear protection and masks. So by accident, when I speak and a little bit of spit or moisture comes out from my mouth, or when I sneeze and a little bit of moisture comes out, if it lands on somebody, somebody touches the phone where it landed and then puts the phone next to you and talks to the phone, then there is a risk of you picking that up from a surface. Hand hygiene, reduce that in hospitals and in normal environments. So how you turn on the sink, right? How you properly wash your hands using soap, both sides of the hands, in between your hands, on the base of your thumbs, interlacing your fingers up to your wrists, and also touching your fingernails to get rid of the dirt. You just learn this one thing, you will go to a hospital less across the next 50 years of your life. Take this from me, you will save one hospital bill at least because of this. Please, I would love to see you in Dr. Mehta's hospitals, right? Because at the end of the day, that's how I'm sustainable. But I would rather see you for the right reason, that I can do something to make your life better tomorrow than it was yesterday. It cannot happen if you don't do simple things right. The last hint I have, or life hack I can give you, is the bathing water, that you have a bath every day. One day I would suggest, take a little sample of that and take it to your lab and ask them to test for microbes and bacteria. And the reason I'm asking this is, you will find in most of your water tanks, if you live in apartment complexes, in most of your housing communities, that water tank needs to be cleaned once a year, and it needs to be properly cleaned. The way you clean that water tank will make the difference of A to Z. And there is this company, ProClean Technologies. If you've not seen it, please go check it out. It's got the most fantastic technology for making all these very complicated systems, industrial systems, very hygienic using natural ingredients. But I think the reason I'm saying this, you will find a lot of bacteria in water that you bathe in, a lot of other microbes that is going into your skin, folks. So when your health starts deteriorating, this is one of the primary reasons. See, I live in an apartment complex, I live on the top floor, and I thought I had a fantastic facility. They recently did the test, and I will honestly tell you, I was shocked. And then I started realizing my daughters over the last couple of months started getting a lot of these spots on their faces, like pimples. And now they don't get any. I get scratchy on my back quite a bit. Now I don't have that as much. All these are simple things. These are not complex. This will take you 10 minutes. It will cost you maybe 400, 500 rupees. If you got a good friend and you're the banker for somebody, you can even ask them, they'll do it for free. Please do this. It is common sense. And by the way, hand washing properly is free. It just takes a bit more water. You can even turn off the tap, continue to do it, and then turn on and rinse your hands. It will also save water. It is free. Please do better hand hygiene. If there is one takeaway from this conversation you want to take from me, hand hygiene, bathing water. These two, if you do properly, you will live longer by at least 1 to 5 years. And more importantly, you will save one hospital trip in your next 50 years. Okay, so I come back to this concept of your health, who is accountable. And think about yourself, and this is nearly the end of my presentation. So for those of you who are thinking this is interesting, but I wish I could ask more, prepare your questions. I will answer tougher, more data centric questions. You are the only person who can take ownership for your health. If you take it seriously, you will live longer. You will be the person who beats 69.2. You will be the person who beats 75. More importantly, even if you live only to 75, you will live high quality 75 years. And our hope, whether we're a doctor, whether we're a nurse, whether we're anyone in healthcare, or whether I'm your neighbor, your family, your friend, or anybody, I wish you to live a long, healthy, comfortable life. Please do this. And in life, there are three stools. You sit on a stool that has three legs, right? I call this the simple three-legged stool. And the reason for this is simple. This is a very simple thing you can hold in your head. The three-legged stool, the three legs are your family and friends, your career and work, and yourself and hobbies and spirituality, right? If these three are in balance, you will always be stable in life. If these three are not in balance. For example, I've got problems at home. My wife is giving me stress. My husband is giving me stress. I'm going through a divorce. My kids are having problems. Some of my friends have got real serious issues. It's like one leg is missing. So your stool is going wibbly wobbly. If you've got a bad boss at work, if you are in a work environment where you do not have stability of work, you do not know if you're going to have your job tomorrow, that leg comes at risk, right? So if you are unhappy with your current promotion schedule, it means that your work career is also a little bit sometimes unstable. If you don't have enough time to celebrate your spirituality, whether it's temples, mosques, churches, gurudwaras, Jain, whatever, whether it's not even going to a temple but sitting at home and being quiet, whether it's playing your sports, whether it's perhaps spending time with your kids, your loved ones, your parents, your hobbies, maybe you like train collecting, stamp collecting, whether you fly paper aeroplanes, whether you're in an enthusiastic club, whether you like dancing or whether you play cricket, it doesn't matter. Three legs of life: family and friends, career and work, self and hobbies. For a period of life when you're going through a tough time, for example, if you've just had a change in your boss or work and it's not that stable, you can still balance on two legs. But you can't do that when two legs are out of whack. So, for example, if you have no self and hobbies and you're having problems at home, and if work is the only thing for you, you can't heal and recuperate. You can hide at work, but you can't recuperate. And so I would always recommend, think about life as three stool legs. Keep these legs strong. If you keep them strong throughout your life, you'll have a stable life. If some of them come out of whack, you still have the opportunity, if the other two are strong, to keep you stable while you get your balance in life. If only one is stable and two are unstable, fix the second one quickly, because you can balance with one. You will have a little bit of an itch on your bottom, but you can manage. But it is not healthy for you in the long run, and it is not going to help you. Many of you know of colleagues who have invested only things in work, or they are only focused on their family. They ignore their friends, they ignore their work, they ignore their other components. You see them after 10, 20 years, the number of beauty of a person's life is diminished. But if they have all these three dimensions in balance, it doesn't matter if I spend more time with my family. It doesn't matter if I spend a bit more time at work working really hard. But if they're in balance and I do them well, I will have a fantastic life. And my last special advice to you is, if you want to give your car an annual health checkup, if you're willing to talk to your taxman once a year to give your tax return, and I know in India we don't, very few people actually do tax returns. Please ask all your colleagues to do proper tax returns. And more importantly, all the businesses and bank accounts you open, let them pay their taxes properly so it doesn't all fall on our heads to pay taxes. If you can do an annual health checkup in any good hospital, I think it will be priceless for you. And I know this, sometimes it feels like you do a health checkup, somebody will tell you 100 things that are wrong with you. But if you do it in a good hospital, in every major city, there are a couple of great hospitals, like a CMC Vellore, like a Dr. Mehta's, like a Sundaram Medical Foundation. There are great, great institutions everywhere. Pick a time, go to a hospital. And the reason I'm suggesting hospital, not a lab, is because you will get a doctor who is always interested in your health in a hospital. So if that person is there year one, year two, year three, it's like a mechanic who sees under the bonnet of your car. They get better understanding of the car. So here they will get better understanding of you as a human being. And therefore they can do something better with you than yesterday. And I think the likelihood of that risk comes down. So please spoil yourself with an annual health checkup. And that is it. It has been a privilege and honor. I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Probably, actually, we have a couple of questions from which we have received through YouTube channel as well as through WhatsApp and other web link. First, the people who are already available on this chat, if they have some questions, let them come first. Then we have got from YouTube and other links will tell. Yeah, Mr. Kumar, somebody you want to ask question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Smita,
Yeah.
you must have got some questions from the team. Can you ask first? I think I'll ask Smita first. Smita, are you there? Otherwise, Kumar, you can ask.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. This is Kumar, sir. Sir, one question is there, how many hours sleep is ideal? And does it change with the age group?
That's a fantastic question. So, look, sleep is one of the primary drivers of longitudinal health. Normally, they say between 7 to 8 hours of sleep is critical. When you're in the very early stages of development, you have seen children, right? When you've just had a child, that child sleeps a lot. So, in the earliest part between 0 and 10, anywhere up to 12 hours, 14 hours is actually not a bad thing, right? Now, an average child will sleep over 10 hours comfortably without disturbance. The problem is we now have this thing called school. So anything above 8 hours for a child is fantastic. As you get older, somewhere along the lines of 8 to 9 hours of good sleep will help you past the age of 50. Now, the problem that most senior people have is because of stress or because they perhaps their bladder problems increase at age, they have to keep waking up at night. So the quality of sleep is also different. When you have 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep, it means the deep sleep, as they call it, which is the highest quality of healthy sleep, is typically only 2 to 3 hours. That is what you're after. So there are people who say that from meditation they can go into deep sleep. I have not personally seen it, but I know people do say that it is possible. uh, to me, 7 to 8 hours of sleep is perfect. I think anything less than 5, unless there is a special reason that you because of work circumstances that you can't do anything else, or because of the place you live you don't have that privilege or luxury, or because of your family circumstances, to me over 6 hours is healthy, 7 to 8 is ideal. If you're a child, over 9.
Yeah, Mr.
Thank
Mehta,
you,
one
sir.
question
Thank you,
from
sir.
my side. Kumar, just 1 second. I think there's one question I received from Mr. Rangarajan, our retired general manager. He's asking that in the name of cleanliness, the hands frequently, we are using chemical sanitizer and attack skin allergies. Can we use water with turmeric powder, which was used in our villages, or else any organic sanitizer is available?
Yes, sir. So I think it's a fantastic question, sir. First of all, my hats off for long service in a great institution. Uh, there are lots of great. So turmeric by itself is fantastic because it's got a lot of positive properties that are hygienic. The problem is it doesn't capture all bacteria, right? So turmeric may capture on the spectrum about 60 to 70% of bacteria. And I drink garam pani with turmeric every night, and I'm living in hope that if COVID comes, COVID gets a 6 out of my park and out of my house. But the reality is I can't really depend just on that. So there are some fantastic chemicals. For those of you who've not seen, go to Amazon or Flipkart. This company called ProClean Technologies has a completely natural ingredient, and it's not the only one, but it's the one I know personally about, and I use them. And they are completely natural with. So they have. It's a combination of purely natural bacterial microbes. And if you think about it, bacteria was 90% of the problem because most of your body is microbes only. So, this is a very healthy, natural solution. Now, the problem with all these hand sanitizers, especially the artificial ones, is you're absolutely right. The chemicals that they have in it, especially sometimes alcohol. So, for a lot of people, alcohol or certain fragrances that they sometimes put additives on top to make it a little bit smell nicer, to perhaps feel a little bit the color is natural. Those are the things that give you the allergies or the skin conditions. You know, in the world of Ayush and homeopathy, they typically advise stick to the natural things more than the artificial things. So I would suggest look at companies like ProClean if you can find the solution that solves it better. If, on the other hand, you can't, not just turmeric, but turmeric with a bit of natural non-scented soap, like the old days hammam, is not a bad thing, right? Hammam was a great product then, it is still a good product now. Only difference is it doesn't smell perhaps as great as we like it, doesn't look perhaps as great as we like it, and it's not as convenient packaging as we would like it. But there are things like that that are still good for us. But a little bit of turmeric by the side will also help you. Only problem with turmeric, sir, is it does stain. So if you are washing your hands, please be careful of where it spills, because if you got a nice white shirt or salwar or blouse, if you're a lady, then it will not help your family washing bill or dry cleaning bill.
Yeah, Mr. Mehta. Smita, do you have any question? Because I also got a couple of on my WhatsApp. You can ask first. Smita.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mehta. This is Simita Das. Uh, I just wanted to ask, there are certain houses where the ventilations are usually not all that good, maybe because of the structure of the house or so. Are there any little hacks that we can use to improve the ventilation in a house?
So Simita, this is it's a good question. It's actually not an easy one to answer. If you have an architect friend, they probably are the person you should invite to your house more than me. So I'll tell you what we do a little bit of. If you have poor ventilation, don't burn the wrong type of incense or too much fire at home, because that means the smoke will be held in your poorly ventilated household. Use, if you want to do incense, do it near the window where you have fantastic ventilation, right? Not on the wrong side of the house where you have no ventilation. That is one. The other thing is, if you have a strong fan or any sort of there are these air humidifiers, purifiers. I'm not sure how superior they are to other things. I honestly don't know, but I do know that, look, feng shui in the oldest form, our vastu in its oldest form, was all about ventilation and common sense factors, right? Where the sun rose, therefore if it sun rises in the east, and therefore if you have your kitchen closer to where the sun rises, it made sense, because then you got light, and therefore the person who had to wake up early was logically in the kitchen anyway, where you had some light because you did not have artificial electricity then. So in the old Vedic Shastras, or in many of the Feng Shui Chinese philosophy, or even European old philosophy, the logic has been ventilation is fundamental. So if you can figure out where the breeze goes from, to remove all the barriers between that, keep them a little bit open. So if you have, for example, a curtain that is always covered from the primary source of your ventilation, maybe keep it open more often and then close it. If you don't have luxury, I mean, not a lot of people don't have the privilege of living in an apartment complex that has great ventilation. You live in a place, it is what you can afford, it is perhaps what your parents could afford, it is perhaps what you have. The only thing I would recommend then is perhaps better fans, couple more exhaust, so that you take at least the toxic heavier air outside near areas that you have. So your chimney next to your oven and grill are very important then. If you are doing incense, do it near the window. Those are the only things. And invite an architect friend, spoil them with a nice dinner, and ask them for some good advice, because they will give you 10 times better advice than me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So any question from your side, more Smita? Otherwise, I'll request. We have a couple of general managers who are joined through us WebEx also. Mr. Dhanraj or Mr. Bijay Kumar Sarangi, Binoy Kumar ji, Madam Jafia. Then I'm able to see Mr. Venkatesh, Mr. Mohapatra from Hyderabad.
It sounds like you're cold calling everyone, Bajajji, just to make sure they're awake on a Saturday evening.
So
The
I have.
people want to go home, and you're forcing them to listen.
No, it's not like that. If they have any question, they can ask. Otherwise, there is one question to me. It has come from one Mr. Shakti Singh. He is telling that nowadays the heart attack is it's a big problem in India. Every youngsters are losing their life. Please give some suggestion for preventive heart attack.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, sir. So we're seeing a lot of patients. It's not just for heart strokes. We're seeing a lot of people getting strokes very early in life. We're seeing 30-year-olds, 25-year-olds with heart attacks. See, in the olden days, we used to have two groups that had a lot of heart problems. A lot of children were born with heart defects, congenital heart defects. Today, that's less, because there is a lot more fetal medicine, meaning that you are able to do ultrasounds while the fetus is growing, and therefore it is not live. And therefore you can potentially, if you know there's a problem, abortion is growing as a percentage, and it is not something that we advocate, but it is clearly reality where you're seeing a lot of fetal medicine recommending in certain cases for perhaps children to be aborted because of potential risk factors. That is one. Also, there are hereditary factors that are applicable to this. Now, just because you had risk of heart attack, your parents had risk of heart attack, doesn't mean you don't want kids, right? So that we don't see so much. The second group is typically people who live longer. So it is a function of age, right? Obviously, the longer you live, the greater likelihood your heart is like a battery that is continuously on, right? So it is permanently on. There is no rest for the battery. Sleep is the closest you come to rest, right? But if it's continuously on, beating at a certain RPM per minute like a motor without much rest, the longer you live, the more likely you are to have a problem. So today, if you have high stress at periods, then that puts the heart sometimes out of whack. So if you can reduce high stress, if you can practice a little bit of meditation, especially breathing habits for meditation, I mean, there is a lot of simple breathing that you can ask somebody to do 20 minutes of good breathing. There are some pressure points on your hands that if you push hard and you put some little bit of pressure, it gives you a little bit of calm in your head. If you can just close your eyes and listen to your heartbeat, even in your office for 10 minutes, it is not bad idea when you're going through a bit of stress. I think don't push yourself beyond the limit. If you've had a hard time, you're feeling uncomfortable, not the day to do exercise. It's not the day to climb Tirupati after you're feeling uncomfortable. I think that will help. I think knowing your hereditary factors or your environmental factors will help. Obviously, don't eat budgies every day or hamburgers every day. Some days, once a week, may be okay for some of that stuff. But if you are having fried food, if you are having high glycemic food or things that are like hamburgers, pizzas, pav bhaji, that is not everyday food. That is like special day food. You know, in the old days, we used to go once a day because that's all we could afford because our parents wanted to spoil us. Today, we spoil our kids and give them every day is our special day. The problem is every day is not their special day. Their special days when you spend time with them, not when you spoil them with the best gadgets or food. So I think if you are a bit kind to your body with the food you intake, don't like your pizza. You may love pizza. You know, once a week is enough. You don't need to do pizza 6, 7 days a week. You don't need to have fried paneer or chicken butter masala 7 days a week. You do not need to have your tandoori roast 7 days a week. You do not, if you're a vegetarian and I'm a vegetarian Gujarati, you don't have to have the best of your vegetable hamburger. My kids love veggie burgers. You don't have to have white chocolate every day. If you have white chocolate, move to dark chocolate. If you have pav bhaji, sometimes reduce the ghee in pav bhaji. That will help you. It won't cure it. So the starting steps are if you are having it 7 days a week, move to 1 or 2 days a week. If you're having it only 1 day a week today and you're already in a good household, I would reduce the ghee content. I would perhaps cook with ghee or olive oil or something else, not the roadside kerosene oil or canola oil. That is not that healthy. Um, if you like your fried food, have that maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks. If you're a senior person already with heart attack, you know, I'm sorry to say this, but perhaps your fried food is once a year. On your birthday, it's your birthday. Spoil yourself, please eat it, but don't spoil it for the other 364 days of that year because unfortunately, your body is spoiled by 364 days. The one day may save you, the 364 may kill you. So just be conscious. That's the only thing I can recommend. A little bit of exercise will help you. A lot of fluid will help you. So this is I'm an engineer by background. So in chemical engineering, when I was very young and I worked in very large companies, we used to have a life hack. And I know some big companies today use this. So please don't quote me, but it's actually true. The solution to pollution is dilution. Think about it. I have thoda sa pani. It has got some dark substance in the bottom. I fill up the whole bottle can with water. I no longer can see that paint or that pigment that much, right? That is what I mean by dilution. So what I'm trying to tell you is, obviously, if you can cut all pollution, do it. If you cannot cut all pollution, start drinking a lot more water. Healthy water that you drink with good nutrients will dilute down all the rubbish and SHIT that you will have, that may be on bad days, right? So yes, you might want to have nice cake. 1 day a week in the office is okay. 7 days a week, you're in the wrong office, right? Or you're in an office that needs a hospital next to it. That is my only advice.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mehta. There are a lot of questions coming in, but I have to keep the time also. So with that, I request Mr. Balasubramaniam to say the vote of thanks. He will propose the vote of thanks.
Respected GM, TMO, BPR, Marketing, CCD and Digitalization, Sri Bajaj sir, GM, CDO, Dhanraj sir, and other GMs, FGMs, General Managers, and my dear colleagues and customers who have joined online for this webinar. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to propose this vote of thanks today. I profusely thank Sri Mehta ji also for giving such a wonderful insight and perspectives on health, hygiene and sanitation. This presentation was very wonderful, sir, and it gave our insight into various operations aspects of our health and hygiene, especially your what we have to look in a healthcare system initially, and how to keep ourselves and environment free and good, so that we live longer, and importance of exercise, diet, checking every 10 years at least our diet plan, and to be surrounded by good and energized people. And you also emphasize that this hygiene and sanitation is, it helps. Prevention is better than cure. That angle also you explained clearly. And the three stone principles, at least we should stand on two legs. That is a great takeaway from this program, sir. And I really thank Sri Mehta ji for agreeing to address this webinar, and despite his busy schedule, and also initially he was explaining, he was despite in the difficult circumstances also. I really thank you very much, sir. I also thank our team from marketing and CCD, who has coordinated very well and made this program a very grand success. Thank you all, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you,
So nice of
Balaji.
you.
Thank you. No,
Thank
no,
you, sir.
look, guys, if we can ever be of any help in Dr. Mehta's, motto is simple. If tomorrow is better than yesterday, then our job is done. Whether you're a supplier, a banker, a customer, preferably a customer, obviously. But even if you're my doctor, my nurse, my allied health, my housekeeping person, as long as your tomorrow is better than yesterday, you will like me. If it is not better, why should you spend any time with me? So I think I always say, guys, please look after your health. It is a small investment, because I know a lot of billionaires, and I have a couple of friends who are, I call absolutely god awful billionaires, because they have more money than sense. They are sorry at the point in life where at 60 they can't do things and they're bedridden because they did the wrong decisions. There are 40-year-olds who are dying even though they have all the money in the world, right? And I think my only recommendation to you is, it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, it doesn't matter if you're Gujarati or Tamilian, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? We are both all human. The good news with everyone I've spoken about is human. Take some ownership of your health, right? It's not hard, simple things. Your diet a little bit, do an annual health checkup, hand hygiene, if you could do that a little bit nicely, check the water that you bathe in. And if you find that too difficult, then just remember, cut down on the dangerous food a little bit more so that you have a better life, and try to live life on three legs of a stool. Because remember, you might sit on a stool, but you'll also stand up often. So it doesn't mean you can't change stools, but try not to sit on a one-legged stool. At some point, your parts of your anatomy will definitely hurt. It's better not to have the wrong pain, right? And a pain in they say pain in the ass is the worst thing you can have. So preferably you don't have that. And really, I wish you better, so that your tomorrows are better than yesterday's. And if we can be of any help, please let us know, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mehta.
you.
So nice of you. With that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.